Welcome back to Tenet Studio. First technique video is going to be how to make music with just stock plugins. I think there's too many plugins out there, third-party plugins that you don't really need, but companies want you to think you do. I think in general it's just a good kind of exercise to show that it's fully possible to make music, make whatever genre you're in Logic, in FL Studio, in Ableton, with stock plugins. So a bit of a challenge today for myself, but I do use a lot of the plugins already, the stock plugins. So let's get to it. Okay, so here we are in Logic. Obviously having good samples is quite important. I get my samples from Splice. I have my own sample pack on Splice called Parallel Sound, so check that out if you need some good sounds. I start with this kick drum. It has a tone. What I usually do in the beginning is just figure out what tone is in that key. Usually it says in the file name, but not always. So I pitch it up 24 semitones. Then you can hear it's a tone, right? So I have a piano next to me. Yeah, it's an F sharp. So what's good about that is now I know what key I should put my track in. You don't always have to do this, but in the case of having kick drums with a very defined tone to them, it's nice to have that starting point, so you don't run into problems down the road where you feel like there's some agitation in the harmonies in the track, and that might come from the kick being in the wrong tone or whatever. That's happened before, but a lot of times also the kicks are very short and you don't have to have that, or you don't have that issue basically. We can put on a limiter to begin with. That's better. So I mean, you can decide what key to have your bass in, or your fundamental tone or key of your track. You could have it in the same as the kick drum. You could also go maybe 7th note up to the bass. Together, that's part of a chord. But if you go to a G, that's not sounding really good. Anyway, let's start with one of my favorite plugins of all time, which is the ESP, which is a basic synthesizer that uses subtractive synthesis. It has all the waveforms, square, sine, sawtooth, your regular kind of settings, which I really like. It's super simple, it sounds great, there's nothing special about it, but it works, and I've used it since I started using Logic. Let's just put in a bass to begin with. Okay. So we'll go to the fundamental of the kick drum, just for the sake of this. So I mean, this is not really very subby. We can have a look with. I usually use Span, which is a free plugin, but for the sake of this video, we're going to use only Logic plugins, and Span is a free spectral analyzer. SPAN it's called. It's super nice. But anyway, you could also use this. So you see the sub is here at around 89 Hertz, which is in borderline out of the sub territory, I would say. So let's try and take it an octave down. There we go. Much better. And I'm going to crank the attack a bit. There we go. The only thing, to my knowledge, that you can't do with ESP is make it into a mono synth. It's poly, so every tone, if you put the release too long, it's going to hit the next tone if they're too close to each other. So you can hear. So we can do this, or we can also go up again, and we can use this square, which is a little bit rougher. Trying to get it to fit with the sound of the kick drum. And we gotta sidechain this. So I still do it to this day. I sidechain to the kick drum. I don't use much volume shapers. So I do sometimes, but I've found that I do like the sound of sidechaining to the kick drum better. It sounds more natural. It's quick and easy. You don't have to doubt that the envelope you're painting in fits to the track or whatever. So I really like this way of sidechaining. So we'll use the compressor from Logic, which is fantastic, by the way. It used to just look like this, obviously, but now you have all these different emulation, sorry. But for sidechaining, it's nice to have the clean one. So I take the attack, release, knee we can take all the way up, ratio up, and then have it sidechain. So it's not really doing aggressive sidechaining, that's fine. Okay, so it's doing about 7 dB gain reduction as a sidechain. So you can also use these different modes, which are sometimes a bit more aggressive, like the SSL style one, but it has some artifacts which are really nice when you are compressing stuff, but not so much for sidechaining. You hear that? But there's a way around it, but I do not like to put attack on the sidechain. Now you can crank it a lot more. So we're going into 20. Less distortion, but I like the sound of this more. So that's a sub. I think we should add another layer to this bass just to make it more interesting. So I'm just going to copy the ESP and I'm going to do some processing on the basses afterwards. First I just want to get that kind of vibe in. That's nice. Put some stereo delay on it. The one from Logic is pretty good, and I think the default setting is just good enough. Yeah. Actually, I like that low end. Oh, stereo link. Sounds good. So, but I think it needs some grit to it. The overdrive in the ESP is okay, but it doesn't give the top end kind of distortion that I like. It's more just like a fattening of the sound. The phase distortion has always been something I really like to use. There we go. Still a bit much. I don't want to put anything processing wise on the master yet. I saw it was limiting. I feel like the compression needs to be more aggressive. Sorry, the sidechaining. So what we can do is just double it, triple it. Yeah, that didn't work. think the bass line is a bit boring. Let's change it, because we can also benefit from having the bass not hitting the kick, basically. Like this. Let's try it out. Still pretty basic, but yeah. More room for the kick drum. Think of it, I do at least, I think of it as a puzzle where everything just needs to have its space, you know? So, one thing I do put on the master is a gain plugin, because I love to mix in mono. I do that so much, even with earplugs on, which I'm using now. So I'll adjust things here, and then when I turn it off, it will sound great on the sides as well. Sounds good, so yeah. After the delay, I like to, especially on the sub bass, I like to just make sure that every tone is consistent in volume. And ESP is, you know, it's set up so it's not linear in sound, I guess is the right word. So I like to put a limiter on the bass, or a clipper, whatever tool available, I guess. We can try the clipper with distortion. Since there's no metering here, I just want to keep it a bit more safe and use the limiter for this. So I'm just watching for the limiter's reaction to the material, making sure that, as you can tell, every tone has a little bit different volume, right? And I'll do the same on the higher bass. So that sounds good. Okay. So we have a kick and a bass. Let's find a clap, perhaps. So first of all, I usually mix my drums in a bus, so we can put the kick to a drum bus straight away and put a compressor on. And here, the Logic compressor has some amazing emulations, like I said earlier. And what I do is usually just like listen to which one fits the material the best. Sometimes I'm surprised that a certain emulation works where I think it wouldn't. So let's just see. So I'll set it to some settings that I think works for this kick drum. I think when it comes to setting a compressor on the drum bus, I really, at least in the beginning stage of the compressor, I will look at the attack of the kick drum to dominate what the settings are. And the attack on this kick drum is very short. It's just a little click. So that tells me that the attack should probably be pretty quick. And I can demonstrate why I think that's the case, and later why, for example, the more generalized consent regarding compression should be around 30 milliseconds. Why I think that's not always correct, right? It depends on the attack of the kick drum. If you have a bigger attack on the kick drum, I totally agree that's good. Release is more or less the same. Just quick, mostly for me at least. So let's see. Set the ratio up so it's a bit more aggressive. I'm trying to capture the snap of the kick, basically. And we can adjust this later if we have a clap that needs more space. But for now, good. And that's the beginning of the drum bus, basically. We can add more stuff to it, but I think it's good to just have a compressor to begin with. Let's add a clap. Okay, so I'll drag that in. Maybe a bit loud. But I'm not so interested in the tail on this. I'd rather make my own tail. I want to kind of sculpt the snap of this without that long tail. So first of all, I'm going to adjust the attack and the decay. I guess the decay more than anything. Almost there. It's kind of hard to see. They're making these numbers almost impossible to see. That's good. So I'm going to put the track in mono again, just to kind of level the clap first. Then I'm going to add some compression. Then I'm going to level again, just to try and get a vibe or a groove, I guess. And it's kind of there already, it feels like. I'm noticing I don't want that much delay on the bass. That's more groovy, right? I still feel like it's not fitting perfectly to the groove yet. So now I'll kind of set the compressor a little bit more specified to the clap and the kick. So basically, when I'm setting bus compression, all I'm listening to is how the clap reacts on the kick drum, and with the kick drum as well, obviously. But nothing else really matters. Those are the two dominant things that will kind of tell the compressor how to behave, basically. See that here, the snap of the clap is pretty working pretty well with the kick. Better. We can also use this in parallel mode, so we can use the mix knob, which is also pretty great. So we find a really good aggressive sound that fits the track and just dial it back. So we can do that on the next compressor in the chain, for example. First, I like to just have it set with a more moderate setting. That's good. Yeah. We forgot to go through the different emulations. This I really like on drums. It's an emulation of a DBX 160, which is really punchy. It uses what's called op amps, which is what makes API hardware really punchy as well. And this is the OG. It's really nice. It doesn't have many settings though, so it's more of just set it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Nice, huh? Okay, like that. And then I really liked the FET compression on this, which is not something I usually use on drums. It's like an 1176 style, but it sounded really good on this. I like that crunchiness. This is extreme settings, obviously, but let's see. Noticing that it's giving a lot of body to the kick, which I'm not really keen to have. That also sounds good. Yeah, I like this the most. In drum bus compression, it's super easy to overdo it, but little tiny differences makes a huge impact overall. And we can go in and use the same compressor on the clap. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna level it now. Since I took away the tail on the kick drum, I think we should make a new tail to it. Just give it some space. But I do that after the compression on it. And I really like the chroma. Chamber. So now I've controlled the attack of the clap, and I'm adding reverb after it's kind of sitting well, you know. Okay, let's add maybe a shaker. That's pretty nice. Let's try that. Try that first. Into the drumbus, of course. Good. And I'm also hearing that the clap can be a bit sharper, meaning some high frequencies. Like that. Let's find a shaker that kind of fits, or hi-hat, I guess, like a off-hat. I would say it's more like a hat, maybe. That doesn't really dominate the picture, it's more just like adding to the groove. So this first shaker is the one that's kind of dominating. And I'm thinking that the shakers can have a little bit of that space that the top bass has. Just listening to the groove in mono, I feel like it's so much easier to feel the groove in the sidechain when you do that. I'm gonna make another video on that, more specifically going into how to feel both sidechaining and compression in general. I feel like compression is such a difficult subject, which I've kind of learned to modulate based on how it feels rather than the numbers, which for a long time I felt like was the only way to get compression correctly, was just looking at the numbers and doing maths and all that stuff. But like feeling it has made me go away from that, and things are sounding a lot better since I did that. So what we can also do is we can sidechain this big shaker if you want to have the off-hat sticking through a bit. We can sidechain it to the shaker. Let's just try that, see how it sounds. Instead of putting the volume louder, it's actually a good way to make more space. Doesn't always work, but it could be nice. I feel like it adds a little bit more balance. Okay, I think we have a just a basic rhythm down. I just want to kind of now find a vibe. So what I mean by that is vibe. I use that word a lot. I mean a fundamental tone of the track. A good way to do that is just make one chord. And when you do that, you've kind of set the kind of standpoint of where the track is going to go harmony wise from there on. So you got to kind of nail that vibe a little bit straight away. Obviously you can go back and change that, but it's a good way to just get more inspired, to add more melodies and stuff like that. So we're going to go for the retro synth from Logic, which is fantastic. That'll do for now. Yeah, okay. The first, so we have 4. It's not the most interesting sound in the world. Maybe we can get something a bit bigger. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. I feel like the track still needs a bit of like glue. Yeah, it's definitely the shakers. Let's add some compression to them, see if I can tone them down a bit. Is that better? Putting it in mono again, listening. Oh. That's kind of better, I think. Maybe also the sidechaining needs to be a bit more aggressive. Yeah, that's better. So it's really easy to, instead of looking at each element separately, to just go and slap something on the master that's gonna kill the transients and make everything sound more glued together. But I highly recommend to look at each individual's sound first, and also the buses first. So drum bussing specifically. So I'm going to adjust the sidechaining on something that's very stereo. I always put it in mono. Maybe something else percussion wise, just to get more interesting rhythms out there. Yeah, that sounds nice. Maybe add some atmosphere in the background. I like having something to complement a pad like that, to just make it sound a bit more out of the digital world. it has this tone that's not very pleasant together in this harmony. You can use the pitch and try and change that. Let's use the Haas effect, which is separating up the signal and putting it left and right with some delay, so it gives you a wide stereo feel. So let's make an ARP, might as well. So what I usually do is just let this play and then mess around on the piano. I highly suggest having just a keyboard or something like a piano next to you, so you can just jam real quick if you need to. I mean, those notes are fine, right? So let's make 3/4 rhythm. Just use ESP again. I love the synth, you know, and it's great for ARPs as well. Yeah, which means this. Maybe not the best melody to do like a 3/4 groove on. What I love about Logic, it's really easy to put in midi effects, right? I'm gonna make a video on that as well, on how to use modulator to just modulate lots of different parameters on the plugins, and you can set them really specific, and yeah, it's a great way to make your sounds come alive. So learn plugin, I'm gonna put this filter, and that's obviously gonna be crazy. Turn off sync. So it's poking a lot out of the mix, so a good way to change that is first compression, then some clipping or limiter. I think we're going to use in this case. So let's try compression first. So you can hear it's putting on this clipping effect already. It's just softening the transients, which is going to make it fit a lot better as the sound we want. So then we can put another modulator on, and we can modulate the decay a bit. We'll just find the sweet spot. You can always draw this in with automation, which I do sometimes as well. And if you do, that will override this modulator, which is great. So we can also add some chorus and some delay, of course. That sounds nice. And some delay again. Let's see what other delay types they have. Yeah, so I'm gonna stick to this. Delay designer is really cool. Some very cool stuff. We could try that first. It's cool to have this more of a sound design tool. We can do some complex filtered ones. Just like in the background, and then we can add a stereo delay after that. Why the sidechain is set on? Oh, right. It's set on the hi-hats. I'm always careful going back and changing things after I've added new stuff, because I liked how it sounded before I added the new stuff, so why would I go back and change it now? Obviously there's a balance that needs to be fixed, but it's also really important to remember that you did like how it sounded before, so maybe it's the new thing that's destroying or making you not like the groove, you know? Because this sounds great. Yeah, so I'm gonna take some low end out of the pad a little bit. Like that. Yeah, this sounds okay, you know. We can add some more stuff. I kind of want to look at the master a bit, and also maybe the drums a bit more. That's a very nice sounding ride, but it's very short, so is it gonna sound kind of natural in a sense? Let's see. If we add some delay to it, that'll change. I'm going to use mono delay on this. Just a bit longer. And then some sidechaining, as always. I also want to add a tom, like a 909 tom, I think. So we want to pitch it 2 semitones up, I think. And then maybe shorten it a bit. It's not the most creative and amazing loop I ever made, but I think it kind of shows that it's easy to get from A to B using stock plugins, right? And I haven't really touched on their more specified emulations that much, like the EQs. They have like full-text and Neve styles, stuff like that. They have a great new saturation kind of plugin in the newest version, which is really awesome. I'm running Logic in Rosetta now, so it's not. I'm not going to be able to use it, but it's really good. But the drums sound pretty good, I think. The clap can have even more kind of high frequencies. That, I think. Let's see what Logic can offer us, huh? I think I want to try the 2BQ. I'm just saw the top there. I'm mixing in solo now, which no one should do. So let's engage everything. So this basically is the band, how narrow or wide it's going to be. Yeah, in case you didn't know. The drive is actually engaged, so yeah. I actually like it without that. It's like I don't want to add this just to add it, right? I feel like it kind of sounds better almost without it. But that's the case if you've kind of mixed everything well already. You don't really need that much EQ specifically. Yeah, maybe just a little bit like that. Let's add a last ARP. I think would be cool. Let's check out some of the other synths that Logic offer, because there's a few that are actually very good, which is, I would say, qualifies as competitive. One of them is the Alchemy synth, right? Very good sounding synth. Okay, let's just to make some play around with the tempo a bit more here. We can add a ARP, which is 132 notes. It'll be fun. But I actually don't want to use this ARP because I want to be able to switch through the presets without having this ARP being affected by it. So okay, so this is not an ARP, so let's just now engage the Logic ARP. want to talk about that in another video as well. It's like how to get focus in your track by adding less stuff on the sides, having a few things be very side heavy, but having a solid mono, right? So that's why I'm very particular about what I'm choosing to be on the sides and what should be in the middle, right? Yeah, so I think it sounds okay, you know? Let's see if we can do some mastering on this. So we're gonna not limit it straight away. I want to use some more compression. So let's go for, I would say, the most used bus compressor or master compressor in the world, which is the SSL style. We all know about that one. Start with 421. Start with 35 millisecond attack, fast release. So I'm just exaggerating in the beginning to hear what it does to the groove. Yeah, that sounds like an SSL. Sounds like how it's supposed to sound like. Noticing that it's becoming overly glued quite fast, so that just means it doesn't need that much compression. That sounds good. What I like about the channel EQ is that it has this like a bump that you can just add after you've a low cut, basically. So let's see. Yeah, so everything is fine except for the ride is sticking out a lot, so I'm going to try and just do that. Then push it into the limiter. And then of course we can read the LUFS. I think it's something we all do these days to see if our track is loud enough. And then you have this. Yeah, it's around 9. It's not super loud, but it works. I don't know. I think my point is here that it's possible to use these plugins. We don't need all these new snake oily plugins all the time, you know. I feel like Logic has become, and Ableton as well, I'm sure, has become just so good. They're up there competing with the best plugins. I still value a lot of plugins that have a more unique job. And I really like the FabFilter stuff for their uniqueness and how they look and how you can use them. Analyzing wise, there's a few better plugins, and I like the limiter from FabFilter. I like the ozone stuff as well, but we don't need more compressors, we don't need more EQs, you know. Channel EQ from Logic is fantastic, good enough to do any EQ job. You have the linear phase one as well. In general, I think it's a great box of tools, you know. I hope this was of value to you. I thought it was fun. Never done this before. Anyway, check out my webpage, Tenet Studio, for more info on mix and mastering stuff, for feedback on music and stuff like that. Other than that, I'll be back with a new video pretty soon. And I want to mention the template for this project will be in a link in the description. So you can download it and you can play around with it and have fun. See you later.